Planet Lives! They say it's lonely at the top. I assure you that is not true. The journey to the top is painful, excruciating, and one of the most lonely processes that you will ever go through. And that is why so many don't make it. Because they give up. They give up too early. But for those that can endure and keep the pressure on them and run the marathon and survive the test of time of business and entrepreneurship, you will meet some of the best people on planet Earth. I'm so grateful and honored to be here sharing the stage with 25 amazing speakers. But especially want to give a big thanks to my brothers, some of the most amazing human beings on planet Earth, Keaton, the Muscle, and Dan Fleischman. Guys, give it up for the other speakers and the entire crowd here. This isn't easy. I got a couple questions. I have a really unorthodox story about how I got on this stage, right? And I have two questions that I'd like to ask you. The first one is this. With a raise of hands, if you have been impacted directly or indirectly, just it has touched your life somehow, I'd like to know if addiction or alcoholism has affected your life. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Here's the other thing that I want to know. This life thing's not easy, right? It's not meant to be easy. That's some entitled belief that has crept in that we're entitled to an easy life. Who here has been through some things, right? You guys have been faced with pain, adversity, problems, troubles that you've had to overcome. With the raise of hand, who's worked through some pain and some troubles? Listen, I'm with my people. I believe that there are two types of entrepreneurs out there, generally speaking. One type is the type that stayed in school, they got good grades, they studied, they did all of that stuff. And the other type is my type. We're the type that sold weed. We learned how to sell weed. That was my first business, guys. You know, I'll take you back in time. 1995, 1996, I'm 10, 11 years old. I'm wearing those big Jinko pants. Does anyone remember the Jinko pants? Give it up for the I got the hat to the side. I got the Discman with the skip protection. I got Tupac, Biggie, Mobb Deep, right? Playing. I'm a badass little kid. I got a Daisy CO2 pellet gun on my Huffy bike. And I got some older kids in the neighborhood to front me at first an ounce of that old Mexican brickbat weed, worked my way up to a quarter pound. And listen, when you're like objection, your goals for your weed selling business at 11 years old is to like have extra money to buy Jinko jeans and CDs and pizza and soda, like, flipping that, it's meaningful to you. And so I get on, I'm getting off the bus. My parents have recently got divorced. I'm at my mom's house, which is an apartment building. The bus pulls up, and I get off the bus, and there's like 4 or 5 police cars in front of my apartment building, right? And one of them is wrapped in the DARE. You guys remember DARE, that program that was supposed to keep us from doing drugs? Really just taught us how much a gram actually is, right? That car's there. And I get off the bus, I'm like, oh man, one of these guys someone's in trouble. And I walk in, and it's me. in my mom's apartment, in the living room, is a bunch of police officers, and my mom and my dad, and a bunch of baggies and weed and scales. And that really set the tone for what my life was gonna look like. Fast forward a little bit, I'm 14 years old, one of my best friends comes over the house, it's 1999. Some of you that are old enough might remember back in the day what set off America's opioid epidemic is a drug called Oxycontin. You guys familiar? My friend brings over an Oxycontin. I'm doing all the dumb stuff at the time, right? And he says, let's try this thing out. We had been doing ecstasy and ketamine and, all this other stuff. And we crushed this pill up, split it into 2 lines. I sniffed half, he sniffed half. True story, off the back of Eminem's first CD, the Slim Shady LP. How iconic is that? And what happened was I felt the effects of opiates come over me for the first time. 6 months later, I was an IV heroin addict at 15 years old. From that time, at 15 years old, I spent almost 7 years, just under 7 years, battling addiction. What I can tell you about that almost 7 years is that it was unbelievably painful. I lied, cheated, stole. I broke the hearts of every single person that loved me. I overdosed 5 times. Memories of waking up in the emergency room as they're pulling me off of sedatives. And they're pulling a breathing tube out of my mouth. And, I'm gonna guess that most of you probably haven't had this experience, but if you're wondering what you're thinking in that moment, you're wondering if you got abducted by aliens. And it's just the most profound experience. And I'm coming to, and in this moment, my people, there's nothing more that I want to do than never use drugs again. My dad, who's a 300-pound logger, cut down trees for a living, is standing in the corner of the ICU room that I was in. And he's crying for the first time. I'm probably 18, 19 years old at this point. And I get up and I look at him and I know that this beast has got me. I don't have a choice. And I tell him I'm sorry. And I'm in a Johnny and I put my pants on and I go to grab my t-shirt. But my t-shirt's been cut up the front. I'm like trying to figure it out. And I look at my chest and I have these 2 big sticky pads from where they hit me with the paddles. I'm like, oh, got it. And I was in the trap house 25 minutes later getting high again. Fast forward a little bit of time, my dad had to shut the door on me. He said, kid, you have got to go. You can't come home. I burned every bridge that I had. I was in and out of jail. I was committing crimes. I was robbing people. And on December 7th of 2006, I had recently gotten out of jail. I was 140 pounds, I had track marks. I'm walking through the hood. I'm sleeping on a pile of blankets in the 3rd floor of a trap house in a very, not nice neighborhood. Guy screams out my name that I know from the street, says, Erick. I walk over, what's up? He says, can you get dope right now, heroin? I said, yeah. I can't get heroin, right? The thing about this moment is that beast, that monster is on me. I'm getting sick, going into withdrawals. And you catch an addict like me in the desperation of that moment, I'm a straight up predator. And I don't want to be, but I don't have a choice. I talked him into coming around the building with me, and I had a large kitchen knife that I swiped from somewhere. And when we came around the building, I grabbed him and I put a knife up on him. And in the struggle, I gave him a superficial cut across his throat as I stared him in his face and I ran his pockets. I took $82 from that guy. I took the $82 and I bought 4 $20 bags of heroin. I went back to the trap house on the 3rd floor. I shot up the 4 bags of heroin. At the same time that I was doing that, The entire apartment lit up with blue lights. I knew the gig was up. I knew that I'd crossed the line, that they had me. I spent that entire night hiding in a closet. This is the early hours of December 7th of 2006. And in that closet, it's quiet and it's just me and God. And what happened was I got down on my knees in the middle of the night. I had best guess 3, 4 in the morning, and I said, God, I can't picture living my life another day like this. I'd rather die. I'd rather you take me right now. I also don't have any idea how to live any other way but how I'm living. I don't know what to do. I need your help. The next morning, I took off from the city that I was in, on the run for armed robbery. Had open court cases, was in all sorts of trouble. I have not used a drink or a drug since then. And December 7th of last year, I celebrated 17 years of sobriety. Two things. I'm going to tell you what I've done since then, but I made a decision in that closet with me and God that I was never going to drink or drug again, ever. Now, I'm not saying that's the decision that y'all need to make. What I am saying is that life changes so drastically by making that one non-negotiable, fully committed decision. What's the decision that you need to make? What's the one thing that's holding you back? What's the one thing that you can go out right here after Limitless and put into practical application into your life and make that decision that you've been holding off on? Getting in shape, the relationships, the apology, the forgiveness, the trauma, the alcohol, the weed, the list goes on. But we all have a decision to make. That one was mine. What happened to me then was I had nothing, right? I had 2 pairs of clothes. I carried them out in a trash bag. My mom let me stay at her house for a couple weeks, and I was kicking a dope habit on the couch. I eventually got a job in a call center, making $200 a week plus commissions, and I got a $550 a month apartment. I slept on a pile of blankets there. Couldn't afford a mattress and didn't have heat for the first winter that I was there. But what I did have was me and God, and I had a mission. I became so obsessed with recovery and helping other people that it completely consumed me. And what happened was, with this, if you want something bad enough, you will do it no matter what. If you don't want it that bad, something will stop you. I worked for the next 2 years construction. I saved up a little bit of money. I earned the trust of my father back. We rebuilt the relationship. In October of 2008, in the middle of the recession, he helped me, we saved the money together, and he co-signed on the loan. I was a 23-year-old kid. We bought a bank-owned, foreclosed, 3-unit multifamily, and I started the state of New Hampshire, my home state. It's first sober living house. I lived there I had 11 clients. I lived there for 2 years. I taught them, we did everything together. We ate together, we prayed together. I taught them life skills. I was hard on them. Sometimes that's what people need, right? They need someone to be hard on them. But the truth without love is cruelty. So as much as I beat them down and held them accountable, I was there to help put them back together as well. And as I started to grow this little business, something happened in America. Maybe you guys paid attention to it, but in 2012, fentanyl showed up. And I watched our overdose rate skyrocket. And I became, again, fully obsessed to do something about it. I took that business from an 11-bed sober living house, and I grew it to 440 treatment beds, 325 employees, and we treated 60,000 patients since the inception of that business. I've been on the front lines of America's addiction crisis in one way or the other my entire life. I've had a front row seat of that. Folks, one thing that I can tell you is when fentanyl showed up, all of my friends died. I stand here today with them. I get to come here and honor them and represent their lives and be a representative of every person who never stood a chance and what can be possible for them. I also watch thousands of people get sober, find recovery, build businesses, become moms and dads to their children again. Just the most remarkable stories of people that you would look and see when they would enter treatment, and like you wouldn't even, they'd come over to like hug me, and I'd be like, oh God, all right. And then you watch them just blow the doors off of life. Because you see, with God, discipline, and hard work, absolutely anything is possible, and as long as you're breathing, there's still hope. That's a fact. I took that business for a ride, 13 years, 2 months. There's 3 things that I learned, primary things, that I wanted to share with you on this. The first one is that kudos to you for being here limitless. Your level of success will never, ever, ever surpass your level of personal development. You are your best investment. The money you spent to put yourself in these seats it's not the stock market, it's not real estate, it's not anything. You are your best investment. Put the money back into yourself and the personal development, because your success is never gonna exceed how much you grow. So if you haven't yet taken the opportunity to join my brother Keaton and this amazing group in Limitless Society, I implore you to take that step. It will pay you back in dividends.